Fritz Perls, who was the father of Gestalt therapy, he was a psychologist and psychiatrist born in Germany, he once said something really profound. He said, "Nothing changes until it becomes what it is. Nothing changes until it becomes what it is." This quote is so deep, simple, and profound, and it really beautifully relates with the topic of today's video, which is going deeper into the subject of trance induction and how the narcissist uses hypnosis in order to lure us into their trap. I did make a video about this 3 months ago, kind of an introductory video, and I have gotten a lot of requests from you asking for more on this topic, as it is fascinating. Yes, it is super fascinating, I agree, and to really expose it for what it is. So nothing changes until it becomes what it is. So when you think about what that means, is that we live in a reality of fake constructs, which are a result of massive amounts of trance inductions and hypnosis that are coming at us from a variety of sources. The primary sources of our trance induction are, of course, our parents, and they too have been tranced by society, by previous generations, and so on. It's a chain, it's like an unbroken chain. And somehow in this generation, a lot of people, thankfully, are waking up to this idea and seeing it everywhere. I think it's partly because that volume has been turned up, especially coming from the media, and we're getting bombarded by so many ideas that are completely fake and false, are made up, and we take it as reality, which further preconditions our brain to want to dwell in that state. So let's strip it down and let's look at what happens when a narcissist comes around and puts this filter over our eyes, which we participate in this process, don't get me wrong, we do, but they put this filter over our eyes in which we see things that are not there and not see things that are there. So according to Milton Erickson, who was the father of hypnotherapy, where he used hypnosis for therapy in order to instill positive beliefs and positive thoughts in the minds of their patients, he said that in order to have a state of trance, you need the presence of 3 things. The first thing you need is a narrowing of awareness and the focus of attention, which, it happens all the time. Like, we do fall into trance states on a daily basis that are self-induced, such as reading a book is a form of trance because you're entering into the mind of another person who wrote it. Listening to music, same thing. Or even daydreaming, when we just go into our thoughts and go into different realms, imagining things, fantasizing about stuff. Now, that is different from when someone does that to us, because in this case, we have full control over where it is that we go and what it is that we do. We are aware of doing it to ourselves. We're doing it to ourselves. That's the difference. Step number 2, or condition number 2, is a surrender to an experience that's not the result of conscious choice. This is where we see the differentiator between us creating it and participating in it versus somebody else doing it for us, in which case our conscious choice is somewhere else. It is being hijacked. It's being subjugated to the will of another. And the final third part is the presence of certain events or circumstances or conditions, which is something that I have alluded to in my first video. Again, I'm going to link it down below, in which we talk about certain conditions, especially in the romantic milieu, where you're with the narcissist and there's a flicker of candlelight, music playing, there's touch involved that creates a sense of pleasure, safety, and so on, which allows the narcissist to really penetrate deeply into your psyche and find out what it is that you want, who is it that you are, plant seeds, and also seeds that are both seeds of trust, of nascent trust, as well as seeds of things that they will later exploit in the abuse cycle. So here's something interesting, which is the idea that you can't really be hypnotized or put into a trance unless you willingly participate in it. So a good hypnotist, or a narcissist in this case, is going to observe what it is that we do naturally. So this is how they accomplish it, is they are stepping back and literally watching us put ourselves into a trance. They watch us put into a trance. How do they do this? Well, let's take it step by step. What happens when we meet a narcissist, whether it's a party, or whether we go on a date with them, or, you know, we have an intimate encounter and we go down deep. So what happens is, usually sooner or later, the narcissist is going to steer the conversation towards vulnerabilities, problems, issues. And what it does is it creates within ourselves this deep sense of bonding, like, wow, this person really knows, you know, what I'm talking about. If you buy into the concept of soulmates or twin flames, it's a concept that's been heavily pushed through in this New Age ideology. I actually did a video about New Age ideology and the rise of global narcissism. I'm also going to link down below if you'd like to go a little bit deeper into what I think about that. But if you buy into that, you're going to be so much more susceptible into thinking that this person is really your other half, because they're so keen at listening to all the cues and clues of what it is that ails you, what it is that hurts you. And they offer to be this panacea of your pain by really being there and fulfilling the role of a parent in a way, of really attending to your needs through giving you codependent supply in the form of care, attention, and acknowledgement. And oftentimes we're so starved for it that even tiny little crumbs are going to really do the trick, and we will lean into that and we will want more. So then when they withdraw, when they take a step back, we're going to feel like something is missing, and we'll want it, we'll long it. It becomes a drug. So they want us to talk about our problems. They want us to do this. And by doing so, they're also going to do the mirroring, which is they're so good at mirroring. It's almost like there's extra additional sense that they develop, lacking empathy, is they mirror and act. So it's kind of like a blind person who will have a very acute sense of hearing. That's what they do, is they create this really intense ability, sharp ability to really hone in and zoom in on our vulnerabilities. So they listen in to the cues, body language, the facial expressions we do when we talk about these things, and then they're there for us. They're listening to us. They become the savior to our problems, to our issues. They dig up the wounds and they poke around it so that we bleed again, so then they can act as the band-aid. They can act as the painkiller. It creates a form of trauma bond that makes it so much more difficult to later shake that bond. And then in addition to that, if you bring up your own beliefs about feeling that, you know, this person might be your soulmate, or if they reinforce that, if they openly say something like, oh my God, I feel like I know you, I feel like we've been together in previous lifetimes, you know, it's that much easier to make that bond even stronger and take it further to the spiritual domain, which makes it even that much more dangerous. So after this happens, after they have it in our grasp, they will start to gradually or abruptly withdraw. The reason between whether they're going to do it gradually or abruptly will depend on what kind of target do they think you are. Are you going to be the primary source? You're going to be the secondary source, meaning they have other people in line, or do they have a girlfriend and they look at you as being the lover, or somebody who will provide them with some specific form of supply? Could be friendship, could be, you know, helping them with a project, whatever it is. You know, you're going to notice that, like, they're going to be either more leaning into you, making the love bombing stage longer and much more deep, as opposed to, you know, dosing you with a little bit of intensity and then withdrawing and going away. But in either case, it doesn't feel good. It feels horrible and makes us question our own sense of self, our own sense of value. And so what they do is initially they're going to put you into this this trance where they will provide you with this presence, the sense of listening to you, being there for you, you know, making you kind of forget about everything else that is going around you, just being really funneled in, your attention's being funneled into them, sucked into them, and theirs is they're doing the same thing with you, meaning that they're really honing in on you, zooming in, like really falling into your soul. It's almost like this sense of deep soul bonding. And when they do that, what tends to occur is we hallucinate, and there is this thing called positive and negative hallucination, where we see things that aren't there and not see things that are there. So, we may read into the things that they tell us. They might allude to, some kind of like a place there. They can say, oh, for my honeymoon I would love to take my bride or groom, to Cyprus or to Sardinia and have this amazing time. And you may be thinking, oh my god, are they thinking of marrying me already? And you feel even more drawn to them, like they're planting all these seeds to you. So but you're reading it, you're filling in the gaps. They're just giving you the details, you're filling in the narrative. Or it's the other way around. They're telling you something and you're raising a red flag. You're like, alarms are going off in your mind, and you're ignoring them. So it's called negative hallucinations. It's where you're blotting out, you're purposely denying things that are dangerous and could have negative repercussions because you so want this to work. So this is what happens. The continued devaluation that they're going to start doing through the withdrawal, through ignoring you and so on, initially it's going to be in order to provoke a reaction. And then through that, what they're going to do is to get off on that, because it gives them a sense of control of another person, and that's also a form of negative supply. So when the moment you stop giving them the praise, the attention, the time that they need, the work that they need you to do, the sex, whatever it is that they want from you, they're going to get off at the provocation and making you break down your boundaries and break down your inner stability and make you fly off the handle. And that's how they feel like, wow, yeah, they're actually matter. That's how they derive their sense of validation. So this thing is going to continue. It's the abuse cycle. When they're very nice to you for a moment, they're going to step forward, give you some more of that, more of those crumbs, more of that love, and then they're going to withdraw, and they're going to come in and withdraw. It's back and forth, until one of the parties eventually leaves and abandons this very skewed dynamic. In most cases, it is a target, because the narcissist really doesn't have that much to lose by walking away, unless you're utterly broken, unless you're failing at providing them with the supply or the image that they need you to be for them, so that their own sense of self is bolstered because you're with them, you're the partner. So this is what they do. They observe you spontaneously put yourself into a trance state, and the more you open up, the more they ask you, the more comfortable you feel around them, the more you feel like there really can be that panacea, that painkiller to your wound, the deeper you're going to fall, the deeper the trauma bond. It is literally like falling in love. It's not raising in love or growing in love. It's falling into the pit of false love. So we do become accomplices in this, as much as we don't want to think that way, but we do. And during the time when this dynamic is unconscious, we are not really as responsible for the situation as we are at the moment we wake up and see it for what it is. Because again, in the unconscious state, we're still operating from childhood wounds. Now, how do these childhood wounds get formed? It's actually very similar for the codependent as for the narcissist, although the narcissist can be born this way. There can be brain damage. There can be many different conditions. There's is a topic for another video. But what I want to say is draw this similarity in here, which is the tremendous trauma through shame that both the codependent person and the narcissistic person are put through during their process of growing up, which is basically that the parents they dislike certain parts of the child, they don't fulfill a certain expectation. It can be sexual shaming, a child points out at all the different parts of the body that they learn, but the moment that they point at their genitals, the parents are like, taking the kid out of the room because it's just so shameful. And imagine what goes on in the head of that baby. I'm drawing this from the work of John Bradshaw, whom I really highly admire and who's done a lot of great work on the inner child. But he talks a lot about the shame, which is the thing that ends up binding us in this false sense of self. And this is where we kind of share some territory here with the narcissist. But while the narcissist does it by completely abandoning their feelings, their empathy, and walking away from that for the sake of becoming someone completely else and just like, you know, fuck this, fuck these feelings, fuck all this, you know, they just won't have anything to do with it. What the codependent does is that they become the people pleaser, and they abandon their own true needs and their wants and their desires in order to be loved and accepted by giving, you know, by becoming the giver, the person who's going to help other people get what they want before they even are able to know what they want or voice it. So that's kind of like the extreme form of codependency, to sacrifice yourself for the sake of another. And so this is how I think the narcissist is able to really spot us and is attracted to us, is because we share a similar kind of wound, except it diverges in two different directions. So you have two opposites that are attracting each other, creating this chemical wedding, this alchemical wedding, this strong intensity of like fire and water coming together and just creating this sizzling dynamic, which can be incredibly addictive, because we love to give. We love to just open ourselves and just like, you know, love somebody fully and completely, to the point of abandoning ourselves and forgetting about ourselves, whereas the other wants to just take and take and take and penetrate and control and manipulate and do that. So it's like two sides of the same coin. And the way to withdraw yourself from that dynamic is by healing yourself and setting very healthy boundaries, so that that person can no longer trespass you and take from you something that truly should belong to yourself. So to not fall into this codependent slave type mentality of subjugation and manipulation, by recognizing the states into which the narcissist will put you through. And so whenever you're noticing this form of narrowing of attention, where you're just, you know, your attention is being withdrawn from where you are, you're losing your footing, you're losing your sense of self. It's kind of extending on one leg and leaning in one direction. All it takes is a little bit of a poke and you can fall flat. And that is really dangerous, because at that point you're not going to sit within your own sense of balance and sense of self. And then notice the obsession that occurs after that person has hooked you in, and then they leave, you know, they ghost you maybe for a few days, they disappear. How terrible that feels to not have that. Or, you know, when they will give you that hot and cold dynamic at first, really leaning into you and wanting to spend time with you, and then all out abandoning you in order to then come back. And then you cannot do anything else other than think about that. It becomes incredibly obsessive, because you don't understand what it is you're doing, why this is happening, and it's having a really deep damaging feeling to your sense of self-worth. Remember that this has nothing to do with your self-worth, that whatever this person is doing to you is a reflection of their own damaged sense of self that they're projecting onto you. So the cure for this is to go back within, to use this opportunity, to use this brush with evil, brush with the narcissist, in order to reflect on yourself and look at those wounds that you have and be able to heal them with your own self-love, with your own self-attention to who you are, listening to your needs and providing those needs for yourself. I know this sounds so foreign to so many of us. People are asking me all the time, like, what is this self-love? Like, what does this mean? Well, it means that you're there for yourself like no one's ever been there for yourself before. Because only when you know how that feels, to have someone really there for you, to have yourself be really there for you, then you will not recognize healthy love when it comes around. You know, you will always, the love that you'll be attracted to is the love that's somewhere in the back of your mind, like you sense that this person is going to leave you, that this person might abandon you. There's this sense of danger. There's this sense of like there's a ticking time bomb. And because you're used to that dynamic, because that's what happened to you before, you equate that with love. That isn't love. To find out what love is a lot like walking into this dark labyrinth with a blindfold on and really feeling your way through into the light. And And so you literally take it one step at a time, follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell said, and follow what feels good, what feels right, and keep working on it, and keep asking yourself, how do I feel right now? What do I need? What can I give myself that I want from someone else? But how can I give that to myself so that that makes me not reliant or dependent on another person? That does not mean that you're going to shun other people from your life. That means that you're going to not have to need someone to heal you and restore you. You're going to do it to yourself so that when you're healed and restored, you're ready to forge a really healthy relationship with healthy people. Because until then, you're also going to attract someone who deep within themselves needs healing. And for the codependent, is usually the narcissist. I hope this video helped you, and maybe you're able to recognize the steps a little bit more, maybe even see them all around us, because hypnosis and trance induction are being used a lot into television. So, you know, even in advertising, where you see an ad showing happy people having a great time drinking Coca-Cola. All of this is in order for us to make an association between the product and the state, the emotional state that is being portrayed on the screen, and subconsciously guide our action and make us reach for that drink and do that thing because we just want to be loved. So know yourself, love yourself, and remember to always let your inner compass guide you. Thank you so much.